Okay, I guess I should start now. So this is about remote desktop service, FastX and VNC on Casper as well as our supercomputers. So first and foremost message to everybody, good morning and welcome. The first message we would like to convey is to stay healthy and safe. It's been a challenge suddenly to find ourselves confined for a relatively long period in our respective homes. And also it is continuing to be a challenge to keep us productive. And note on interaction during this presentation, this is to alert you that we will be recording this tutorial. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat window. We will try to answer as many of them as we can after the presentation. You may raise hands too if I during the break of each section of this presentation, I will note if there are raised hands and I will unmute you if you want to ask any questions in context of the section that I will be presenting or I have just presented at that point. So in this presentation, I will be addressing the problem of slow performance of your X window-based graphical software suite that runs on CISL resources while the display is forwarded back to your respective laptop or desktop. Some of the advice will particularly be for NCAR folks, and I will make that clear in context. I will interject small how-to videos within this presentation as an experiment. We appreciate your feedback on any aspect of this presentation in any of the standard forms. You contact CISL customer support. If your broadband network is pretty good, as for example, greater than 100 megabytes per second, probably your typical X window performance is acceptable. However, follow this presentation for additional benefits that you may reap if you choose to use this service that we are trying to promote here in CISL. And to emphasize, many of our peer institutions, as for example, NARS, has been offering this for years. So with that, let me start my first slide, which is also a motivational video here, in which I will log into Casper, start MATLAB using standard X forwarding on, and also I will do the exact same thing in one of the VNC that I will be presenting later in this tutorial, just to give you a sense the response or the performance that you would expect, or the difference that you would expect even with the relatively high or fast internet that I am in. My home network is 100 megabytes per second Comcast. So yeah, I'm sorry. So let me go back to this thing. So here is the video. So first I'm logging into Casper, starting MATLAB, and lower right corner you can see the clock ticking, how much time it takes to start the MATLAB fully, and then I will stop it and go back to the usual VNC mode to check how much it does using VNC. So as you can see, it is taking pretty long from regular X window forwarding over relatively fast internet. So it's fully started now. Now it's well past 40 seconds. Now I will try to do the same thing using the VNC or the FastX that I will be presenting later in this tutorial, to just to give you the response or the sense of response that you will expect while starting MATLAB from FastX. So it took about 10 seconds or so, at least 4 times the speed that you see. Now, let me go to the next one. So here is our agenda today. First, I will describe what is a remote desktop service. Our, then I will go to describe our temporary deployment of remote desktops, that is FastX. Uh, I have to emphasize here, when during this sudden crisis period, we have hurriedly created this server. And this is not a well-planned service. Means we have been planning this for a while. We have ordered the hardware, and but with all this COVID-19 situation, right now all the dates or the timeline that we had in mind is up in the air. But uh, considering the crisis, and many of our staff members as well as users are working from home, we have hurriedly set up this FastX remote desktop service. Hope this will be useful for you. So, but I again and again I will be emphasizing the fact that this is a temporary deployment. Not do not expect uh, very high availability or bandwidth. But so far things are going great, and we encourage you to use it. So then I will describe access modes, means how different ways of accessing this FastX service, and the clients that are available, known issues so far that we have noted. Then I will talk about best practices to use it so that equitably it can be used by all of us. And also, you have been using this remote VNC, the Turbo VNC, particularly for graphics rendering, where your graphics rendering requires hardware like specialized GPUs and all that. I will talk about that or present that in contrast to the existing FastX service. Which one to choose, that will be my next topic. And then I will open the floor for question and answer. So what is a remote desktop service? The best way to think of a remote desktop service as your laptop or desktop running in our facility or NWSC, yet it is accessible through some client or your web browser. So as you do, or as you use your laptop or desktop, you can browse, edit files, do some small computation or visualization. But for any of the heavier computationally demanding uh, job, you connect to Cheyenne or Casper. For example, you are processing lots of data or need lots of memory that is greater than 4 or 8 GB, or requiring many processes. You can either SSH directly, this passwordless SSH directly to Cheyenne or Casper, and then go from there. Or this node happen to be being a Casper node, you can execute exec-dab right from the FastX server. More later on this particular way of accessing. So this is about a remote desktop service. This is just to summarize your existing Mac or Windows or Linux desktop sitting in NWSC. That's the best way to think about it. Now, this is our about our FastX deployment in CISL. As I mentioned earlier, this is a temporary, just to manage the current crisis. Carefully planned, robust, and properly sized deployment will follow. We have been planning this for quite some time, ordered the hardware already, but as I mentioned earlier, all the timelines are up in the air at this point. So the current deployment, which is the temporary deployment, has 384 gigabyte of total memory. This is a single standalone Casper node with 36 cores. Hostname is fastx.ucar.edu. Web URL is fastx.ucar.edu:3300, which is the port. And then the document link. You don't, I'm not expecting you to be able to see that, but once the slide is posted, probably you should be able to click. So once again, let me emphasize this. This is your laptop shared with 3,000 other potential users. So be mindful of doing local computation there. Um, it's okay to issue exec tab or do some small MATLAB or NCL execution right there. But always we recommend that you use exec tab or SSH to shine to do your stuff. But at the same time, display is forwarded back to the FastX server. So what we are potentially offering is ability to X forward display conveniently. Now, how to connect to this FastX service? It has a native client for Linux, Windows, as well as Mac. You can install this in your desktop. For most basic installation, you do not need system privileges to do it. But if you have system privileges, it gets aligned with your other apps, and you can view nicely. But other than that, functionality wise, non-root installation is no way any inferior to the proper system privileged installation. It is slightly faster to start, can be connected from anywhere in the internet. You do not need to be in VPN. And as I mentioned, on your machine, clients installation need to be done. Many of us may not be comfortable doing it. And if you have root privileges, it will have a more robust installation in particular. Then you also have the ability to connect using your web browser. So it's a browser-based access. Nothing need to be installed in addition to what you have. Every laptop desktop has browser installed in it. Slightly slower to start. That is, when you initiate the connection, it takes a couple of seconds more to begin. But it requires either VPN, means either directly accessing through VPN, or you need to establish an SSH tunnel and then start it. Either of these steps is not a huge deal that I will explain later. And personally, I prefer web browser purely because of the fact that nothing needs to be installed and it gets you online quickly. But at the same time, you may want to keep your browser-based access separate from your computation access. Oftentimes, browser gets messier. You need to kill the whole browser. At that point, your connection is killed. There are benefits of using standalone SSH, standalone native client access. That's what I'm trying to tell. So if you are in VPN, browser-based access is pretty straightforward. This is the URL. You can click this link or cut paste this link, and from there you can go. So here is a video for browser-based access. So point your address to fastx.uka.edu3300, give your username, then click the login button and the token response. So there you usually do authenticate or you wiki authenticate as your particular case maybe. And then once you do authenticate, you do not even need to hit the submit. And then you will get to this session. So click the plus button and then click KDE. So now you will get a KDE desktop. A couple of comments on KDE. It's a lightweight. That's why we chose this KDE desktop over GNOME desktop. It's not as nice as GNOME, but it takes less amount of resources and does the X forwarding nicely. Oftentimes for Bash, you will find this problem that your module is not initialized. Either you insert this command into your startup like Bash RC, or from command line you type this source etc profile.d modules.sh. Once you are done with it, then go back and kill the session. Then it will free up the resources for other users to use. If you want to retain the session, then you can just kill your browser. It will continue to be there, and next time you log in, you should be able to connect to your existing session. And that's the persistent benefit that I will talk about a little later. When you are not in VPN, you need to establish your SSH tunnel. This is the command to do it. So uppercase L 3300 fastx.ucard.edu and then the remote port, and point your browser to 3300 port. I will show a similar video in the next slide just to set your expectation when you do this, right, especially for the browser part. So this is the tunnel creation part, which is pretty easy or straightforward to do from command line, but some of the GUI-based SSH command like PuTTY and secure CRT, it's slightly non-trivial, and I have videos for you in the next two slides. So here in the browser, so you set this HTTPS localhost and then the port number, which is 3300. And when you hit enter, you will get somewhat alerting screen. Don't worry about it. So go to advanced and proceed to the local host, though it is giving you this warning message. That's not a problem. And then you log in as usual using token authentication. So if you are in Windows platform connecting to us using PuTTY, then setting a tunnel using PuTTY is somewhat hidden. So I'm sorry, I don't need to go back. Yeah. So in the hostname window, you insert the fastx.ucard.edu and then go to that SSH menu and click tunnels and give the source port, which is 3300, and the destination, the fastx.ucard.edu colon 3300, and then hit the add button and then open the connection. Once you log in to fastx.ucard.edu, your tunnel is established. So once the tunnel is established, then you can point your browser exactly the way I showed you earlier, that is localhost colon 3300, and go from there exactly identically. For secure CRT, this is similar but slightly different. Finding the correct menu to do it is non-trivial. So in the options window, go to that port forwarding menu as I am showing you, and then click add, give a trivial anything, any name you like, and the local port insert 3300, and the destination host you click, check the box and write fastx.ucard.edu and hit OK. This is for the connection property of fastx.ucard.edu. So then you go to connect and choose the fastx.ucard.edu server or the session address that you have saved. Login as usual. Once the login is successful, your tunnel is set up for your Windows or Mac, whichever machine you are connecting from. Then you can connect your local browser to the fastx.ucard.edu. You can access FastX, as I mentioned earlier, using native client. Web client is nice and convenient, but web instance is shared, as I was saying earlier, with other stuff. So you may want to compute uh, outside the browser. And FastX does offer native client for Windows, Mac, as well as Linux. So this is another video for connecting to FastX using native client. Sorry. In the documentation page I mentioned earlier, everything is detailed, but here I am just giving a hands-on menu. So any name you provide, host is fastx.ucard.edu, give your username and the absolute path of the FastX protocol that we have mentioned in our documentation page. Just cut paste from there. Authenticate using token response as usual. And once you are authenticated, you will get this screen. Hit the plus button on the upper right corner and then pick KDE. So right from there, as you have noticed, the startup is slightly faster using FastX native client compared to the web client. But other than that, once it is started, I do not see any response difference or anything like that. Okay, so now best practices. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, this is a temporary installation, relatively limited resources. We have allocated only a single Casper node. At this point in time, we are doing okay there as there are not many users. If really too many users start using it, then we will have to mindful, every user needs to be mindful about the usage need for other users as well. So limit your local computation there to short MATLAB, ideal, NCL, or Python. These are okay. Means quickly you are running for a minute or two is okay. You can edit that is using XGUI, Emacs, for example, XXDiv, casual, and CView is fine. But anything beyond, kindly SSH to Cheyenne or use execdab as you as your need may be. And earlier, when you were creating this session, you were always hitting a plus button on the upper right hand corner to create a desktop. We do not prevent you to create more than one desktop, but please limit your number of desktops to one only. Normally, you do not need more than one desktop. If you use more desktops, it unnecessarily allocates more or reserves more resources exclusively for you, which other users cannot use. If persistence is not needed, means you do not want to retain your session tomorrow to start from exactly where you left, please terminate just to free up the resources. But if you think the session persistence will give you value, give you productivity, or by all means go ahead and reuse the session again and again as many times as it is required or needed for your particular work. Also, a note, sessions that use excessive resources may get killed. We have monitoring scripts from time to time. This watchdog will wake up and check your session usage. So if it gets killed, almost always you can assume that you are using a lot of resources. But please get back to us if that is not the case, or if you do not feel that was the case. We will try our best to mitigate as good as possible. And also we will continue to monitor your usage. If we find, even if the threshold is not reached that your session needs to be killed, but if your local usage is heavy, we may contact you to limit local usage and ask you to uh, issue exec app and work from there. So these are the known issues so far. Oftentimes, web URL site times out. If you encounter this problem, check that indeed your VPN is functional or not. The existing VPN, the Global Protect, if you are experienced with earlier incarnation of Cisco VPN, the existing Global Connect VPN, Global Protect VPN is much more robust. But even then, it is an additional layer and it can be funky and it can get terminated on and off. So if that is the case, then your website may time out because it cannot access the site. That is also true of SSH tunnel. After all, it is an SSH session. If it is broken, then you won't be able to connect. But the nice thing about FastX is its persistence. Even if your session is broken, nothing is lost. You re-establish the connection and you are exactly at the point where you were last working. Another problem is KDE desktop fails to start with dbus error. Recently, we encountered with one of our users, and we noted that in his case, he was initializing Python, his own Conda installation of Python in the shell startup script, which is very common. It should not be an issue, but unfortunately it is. So for the timing, we request if you are initializing your own Python setup within your startup script, uh, and you are seeing that this KDE desktop startup fails, try to comment this out and reconnect once again to see if this problem goes away. Oftentimes, response is unusually slow. Server could be busy because one or more users have inadvertently started a huge resource consuming jobs. It happens. Um, Please notify us. We will work with whoever is doing and suggest the right way to do things. So these are the so far known issues. More we will discover as I guess as we proceed with the heavier usages. Now I switch gear and move to VNC using VNC MGR. Many of you were familiar, I guess, with the VNC server submit script, which we have upgraded or made much more featureful and convenient using VNC MGR script. And here is the documentation to it. If you need hardware rendered graphics display, then use the script to start your exclusive VNC session on one of the Casper node where we have this hardware graphics GPU. So it will give you required amount of resources, by default one core and limited amount of memory, but you can ask for more. And it's very interactive in the sense once you start it, in next video I will show you, once you start it, it will give you options and guide you through the menus to initiate your session. It can be started from while you are in VPN or otherwise, and depending upon the fact that whether you are in VPN or otherwise, it will suggest you to way to connect to the VNC, creating tunnel or directly. So here is the video on using this VNC MGR script directly from your desktop or laptop. Mm, And this is particularly not while you are on VPN. So check first, we get that script and it is asking for project code. You give the project code, choose whatever option you want to give, and then wait for job to start, because this is an exclusive Slurm job that's been started. Depending upon the load in the system or in Casper key system, mm, it may take a while for you to get the VNC session. But once the job is started, the response will be relatively good. So since I am connecting from outside VPN, normal internet, it is asking me to create the tunnel, and it is giving the exact tunnel syntax that I need to give from my command line. So I exit out of the script and then create the tunnel. I have already moused and grabbed this. So yeah, I'm creating this tunnel. So once the tunnel is created, then I need to click Turbo VNC or a Tiger VNC client, and not only it starts the tunnel, but it also gives the host address as well as the one-time password that it has generated. It's way more featureful than is demonstrated in this small video. Certainly our documentation has all the features described, and uh, you can explore. It's very interactive, so you can explore all the feature as you continue. So this is a full screen mode. I make it a window, and since this is specialized hardware, I can start a terminal, and from there open GLBrest graphics, the traditional applications we can start. So once we are done with it, it's recommended that you kill the VNC session to free up the resources for other usage, and uh, that also we can do using the exact same script following a kill menu that you can see. So here I give that command, authenticate into our server. Since there is only one session running from my ID, uh, once I give kill command, it will find out the session I am in, and it will just terminate the session. So it has picked the correct job ID and killed it. So now I come out of it. So with that, let me make a concluding remark. Use FastX remote desktop for most of your daily interactions with CISL resources. Even if you do not need X window based service, you may like the persistence. On and off with slow internet, our SSH connections get broken. We can use terminal emulator like Tmux and other thing, but even Tmux, in recent times I have seen getting this bus error and getting killed because of the file system issue. That way, this FastX service is relatively more stable. The persistence is certainly much better. I strongly advocate or recommend using it. If you are accessing Cheyenne for the most part, SSH to Cheyenne from there. Once you singly sign on to a FastX, SSHing from FastX server to Cheyenne is passwordless. You can exec that to any DAV work. Display will be forwarded from the fastx.uk.edu, so your display and everything will be read there. But if your graphics need requires the hardware accelerated graphics, from the GP100 graphics that we have in our Casper server, then use VNC MGR. The current FastX deployment is for crisis management and more robust deployment to follow perhaps later this year. We do not know at this point. Everything is up in the air, as I mentioned earlier. But I cannot overemphasize this fact that this is a temporary deployment shared between all of our users. So be mindful about the local usage. But at the same time, we do encourage you to use it to suit your best need. So with that, let me end this presentation and ask for questions. Okay, here is the questions from Team Hoare. Okay, so Team Hoare's question is, have you noticed MATLAB does not behave the same through Tiger VNC as opposed to from Casper directly? For example, I cannot set breakpoints in MATLAB functions when I use Tiger VNC. Tim, I have not noticed this. I need to explore, but it sounds like this is something to do with the MATLAB more than the VNC, but I will explore and get back to you. But I strongly recommend, since Tiger VNC, Turbo VNC, all these products are open source, freely available, I strongly recommend you try the same using FastX and let us know if you face the exact same problem.
Okay. Can you hear me, Sid, or do I need to? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you, Tim, fine, yes.
Okay. So the other thing is when you fire up the interface, you skip right past some of the options. And I want to know, are there options there that help get the hardware graphics? The example on the web page shows somebody using GPUs for Vapor, right? And so when I used to use the other interfaces, I would specify Casper ampersand X11 as the resource that I would like, because I didn't feel like I needed GPUs. If I'm using MATLAB, what are the best options to use?
That is by default, I believe. Is Brian in the call as well? I think that's the default. By default, you will get a GPU attached node as well as GPU resources for you with Turbo VNC. So if you are running MATLAB using Turbo VNC, that's exactly what you will get.
Hey Sid, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So by default, it gives you a X11 node, and currently all of the X11 nodes are also nodes that have GP100s. Now that may not be true at some point, but yeah, you should land on a node that has a GP100 GPU on it.
Any more questions? Okay, Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got FastX running and started up an X window. I'm having trouble cutting and pasting between the FastX X terminals and my native Mac terminals or windows. Is there a trick to getting it to recognize the clipboard or something?
Control Shift C.
Yeah, I do that. So I cut with Command C out of the.
Okay, so Command C for cutting from Mac and Control Shift V as in Victor for pasting onto FastX.
Okay, let me try that.
So let me write it in the chat window.
Yeah, that's not working for me.
That is not working for you?
No. I remember when I installed the X-Quartz on my Mac, there was also some trick to get cutting and pasting to work, and I can't remember what that trick was, and I haven't been able to get this. I can't even even within the FastX X terminal, I can't cut and paste within it.
So in your, if you select something, if you highlight something, can you right click using your mouse button and get a menu?
Yeah, I have a single, this may be part of the problem. I have a single button Mac mouse. Okay, so it did maybe it did that. And then maybe I've selected.
So is probably two finger gives you the option to pop up. How do you raise the pop-up menu using that mouse? I guess two buttons.
I'm not sure what you mean. I know, like in the standard X11 on Cheyenne, I think it's option click is paste. Let's see. Yeah, option click is a paste in standard X11 on Casper. So highlight, right click, or click is copy, and then option click is paste, and that does not work in FastX.
Okay.
So I don't know. There's some incompatibility between, I guess, the way I have my Mac mouse preferences set and FastX.
Let me work with you offline on this particular, because I guess this is very specific to you.
Well, maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Sid, Tim has another question in the group chat.
Okay, so let me check. Okay, yeah, Tim, yes. The short answer is yes. If you have a heavy MATLAB case, well, should I still use except tab or means unless you require hardware rendered graphics, I would suggest you go to FastX and then exec tab from there. Does that make sense? Vijay, can you unmute Tim for a second?
Tim did say sure, thanks. He
okay, yeah, okay.
In the chat.
So. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Okay.
Sid, I don't see any other questions just yet. But
okay.
Nick did mention that the consultants will be around.
Yeah.
As long as there are questions, so we can hang out a bit and just see if anything else comes up.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Frank, then you, if you don't mind, continue for a second. And since all of us has Mac, perhaps some of my colleague has a ready answer for this.
Rory, you are unmuted now.
Oh, lovely. So I was just pointing out on the Mac, if you copy normally with Command C from an OS 10 terminal, you can paste into a FastX terminal. You just hold the Command button down and then mouse click in the Xterm window, and it should paste.
Frank, would you mind trying this option? BJ, you might unmute Frank.
I'm going to unmute everyone since they're not.
Yeah, not, yeah.
So everyone is unmuted.
Okay. Sid, I think that just worked. Okay. I was sort of doing it on the fly. So it's Command C to copy, I think. Highlight. Sorry for being so elementary here. Command C, holding down, Command click. Okay, that does it. So
Great.
in standard X11, for some reason it was Option click to paste. Now it's Command click to paste. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Rory.